Yeah, thanks very much for the invitation to present our work that we were able to do over the last pretty much 2 years now regarding the consent form wizard as part of the DARIAH Working Group funding. Now, very shortly, just tell you who we are. We are the Working Group on Ethics and Legality in Digital Arts and Humanities. We have done several topics around copyright and open access before. And then when the GDPR came into effect, we early on saw that there was a lot of need for training, for information, and for demystification of everything that the GDPR really brought with it. And so we decided to see what are the demands of the greater community between the DH community and the DARIAH community. And the output of that, and also the thing that we applied for during the working group funding phase, was the consent form wizard. Now, the consent form wizard has been developed by especially the Austrian and the Croatian group. You have here the names of the ELDAH co-heads, Vanessa, Hannesschläger, Koraljka, Kuzman, Šlogar, and Walter Scholger, that's me. And there was also Norbert Giriak from the Austrian Academy of Sciences involved very deeply in the whole project, as well as Pavel Kamotsky. So you have all the names of the people involved. You also have the link here to the tool, and you will hopefully either have checked it out before or will get a chance to check it out later. And the presentation, which is very brief anyway, can be found at this URL there that you have at the bottom of the screen. Right, so the DARIAH ELDAH Consent Form Wizard is a project that we started in late 2019 through discussions with our own working group and with the greater DARIAH community. We also traveled to a number of DH conferences and inquired about people's problems with the GDPR, or rather their insecurities with it, because very few institutions have dedicated training or legal offices to help scholars with such issues. And we found out that there isn't really that much information and training going around, and that is definitely something that we want to address as a community service. So we set up a project to define or to design a tool and publish a tool, which is called the Consent Form Wizard, which enables you as scholars to quickly and very easily obtain standardized consent forms that conform to the GDPR principles. The important thing to note right here, I think, is that even though this is aimed towards the GDPR and the consent form fulfills all of these purposes, it is already used outside of the European sphere as well, because what we have as a legal obligation in the European sphere kind of also is an ethical obligation, regardless of the country you're doing your research in. So it's all about consent, it's about information, it's about transparency. So all of these principles we think are very important for best practice in research. And that's why this tool is not just a legal tool, but actually one that can be used in any research context, even if it is also outside of the European Union. To give you an idea of what we are addressing with the Consent Form Wizard, basically it starts with 3 basic questions about the scenario in which you want to process personal data. So gathering data from and or about living people for research purposes. Then there is one for digital communication media like mailing lists, newsletters, stuff like that. And there is also gathering data and or consent from participants as the host of an academic event, for example, like the one that is taking place right now. So these are the 3 scenarios that we discovered through discussions with our community, either in working group meetings or in DARIAH events, and also in DH conferences like the one from the German Association, also Utrecht, and so on. So I think that was really a very representative selection, and that's the 3 scenarios that we identified as being the most common that people addressed as their concerns. So once you pick one of these scenarios, you basically get to fill out a form, a questionnaire. The entire tool is online. It's interactive, so you can always access it. It also doesn't save your data, which is probably an interesting side note. So our tool doesn't process personal data actually, except for the time you're actually on screen on the tool. Once you have downloaded your results and close the browser again, your data is immediately deleted again. So we do not store any personal data because we thought it was important to practice what we preach, obviously. So you go through a questionnaire, and in the end, and that's the second window you have there on top, based on your answers, you get a consent form, which you can use either online or on an actual paper sheet, or you can include it in a conference tool or whatever you want to do with it, because you download the whole thing as raw text. It was important to us to keep it as simple as possible and to make it as reusable as possible for our users. So that's what the tool does. And to give you an idea of what we did with the tool and also what the funding did for us, here is a summary of all sorts of activities that we did that led to the development of the tool and the stage that we are currently in. So the tool is already fully functional, but we are still working on several adjustments that I will cover in a minute or two. You see here that there were a lot of internal meetings, many of them with the ELDAH group, either online or in person. There were a couple of actual development meetings, which were in person just before the COVID situation hit us in February and in March 2020. And then there were a couple of coordination meetings, working group meetings, all of them already virtual. So that was, for example, one of the things that we were faced with. We originally wanted to or applied for money and funding through the working group screen to cover, travel money for testing, for development meetings, and so on. And suddenly, all of these meetings happened online, which on one hand was interesting because it gave us different opportunities, but it also meant that basically we didn't have a way to spend the money at first. We did a couple of external meetings, or it's not really meetings, but workshops, dissemination activities. We had a SHOCK webinar, we had a DARIAH workshop, we had an open air webinar, an Erasmus Plus workshop. So we have been all over the place with this tool because obviously it is a demand that meets not only, or needs to be met not only for the DARIAH community, but for digital humanities and even beyond digital humanities for researchers in the fields of arts and humanities as a whole. The next thing that is coming up is the SHOCK workshop on data protection in research practice. And that's also one chance to advertise things because you can join us for that workshop, at least hopefully you can, because it's scheduled for the October 13th in Zadar at the University of Zadar. It's going to be a full-day workshop and in a pre-conference event for the DARIAH Croatia conference. You have the registration link here. We are looking forward to have as many people as we can fit for this workshop to discuss the tool and further development with them. There is also travel funding available, which brings us back, of course, to the working group funding, because now that was one of the things that we also wanted to support and actually get people travel grants to meet with us, to test the tool, to discuss with us, and so on and so on. So that's one part of where our funding actually went. The other thing that we decided to do, since we had to change our scope very much and also the scope of our funding, of where our funding goes, was to make a multilingual tool. Originally, the consent form wizard was just in English. We now have translations more or less ready. They will be launched within the month for Croatian, for German, and for Italian, which we are very excited about. And there's some more already in progress. There's Slovenian, there's Greek, there's Norwegian, Portuguese, and Hindi, actually. Very excited about that. So all of these are in progress, and we hope to have the tool in those languages and also conforming with those languages' legal terms before the end of the year. All of this was a community effort, so there wasn't actually that much cost involved with that. We also decided to produce tutorial videos, which took some of the rest of the money. There is a tutorial that was produced in German, thanks to a cooperation with Digital for Humanities at the University of Vienna, which basically means that there's 4 tutorial videos which give you a rough introduction to the GDPR, to the duties of data processes and the rights of the data subjects, as well as the ELDAH tool itself, the consent form wizard, in practice as a means to fulfill these obligations and obtain proper consent. These tutorials have now been produced in English as well, which was one of the shifts of our focus that we did in the working group funding. And they will soon be published on the ELDAH YouTube channel and also feature in a DARIAH campus module on the GDPR and consent in scientific or research practice. There have been a couple of collaborations. We have been close with the CLARIN click, also with Europeana, with Icarus, with OpenAir. So the consent form wizard has really been around, and it was, I think, this very broad demand and need of the community that makes this tool so sought after and so prominent in many conversations. And we are delighted that we can actually now produce something for DARIAH campus as well to further the dissemination of this tool and the broad use of it. If you want to get in touch with us, either about the working group itself or this project, please do, by all means. You have the various ways of communicating with us here. And other than that, all that is left to say is please use it. I think it's a very useful tool. We've had a lot of feedback on it, and we are still improving it as we go through the whole thing. We are presenting the whole thing in different languages and probably also for different scenarios. But the more people use it, the better our research is going to be. And also the better we can improve the consent form wizard itself. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Walter. Thanks a lot. I think now I'd like to move on to the second presenter, which I'm trying to say it right now. It's the working group Digital DH Course Registry. So I'm giving the word to Anna, Hendrik, and Leon.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having us. So thank you, everyone, for attending today. Here's a brief overview of what Hendrik, Leon, and me are going to talk about. First, we will provide an overview, some updates, usage statistics, some outputs. Hendrik will then talk about the technical enhancements. We will share with you some useful links, and then we might have time for questions and discussions. So first of all, what is the DH Course Registry? It is an overview of the growing range of courses on offer worldwide, and its mission is to gather the rich offerings of different courses and to provide an up-to-date picture of the teaching and training opportunities in the field of DH. So long story short, it is an international platform for finding and promoting DH courses. Here you can see an overview of our target groups, which are students, lecturers, and researchers, program administrators, and policy and decision makers. They all have different interests, and we want to approach them via different communication channels, which you can see here listed. Maybe I should say in brief that we tried to focus mostly in our recent work to reach students and lecturers and lecturers and researchers. So here we have some usage statistics, some website analytics in the last 3 years, basically. And right now we have 251 courses visible on the website versus 484 courses that are in the database. So when it comes to outputs, we had this Reaching Out project where we submitted 2 deliverables. One was a dissemination strategy, the other one was a dissemination plan. And we defined our outreach of our working group via the 4 pillars of dissemination, which are on the one hand side, the website, where we had several developments and improvements. we are trying to establish an email, on the one hand side, an email feature that allows interested entities to be automatically notified once a course of interest enters the registry. And on the other hand side, we are trying to establish an internal email list where we can reach out to all the contributors and lecturers that are affiliated with the course registry. Then we tried to foster online presence via social media, especially via Instagram. And we produced some promo videos and screencasts. And last but not least, events like this one. We have now available an online tutorial for the national moderators. And we had a virtual hackathon, and I will talk about that in a minute. So here you can see, first thing was the website. I talked about this, the Notify Me button. So you can see on the website, we implemented a button. If you click on this, you see on the right-hand side in the smartphone a list of topics that you can choose out of that you're interested in. And once you select a certain combination, the system will then notify you automatically about the course that has entered the registry. So now we are working on embedding some national moderators profiles to have a more personalized website and to show users a person that is real and approachable. So if national moderators are with us aboard right now, this is a friendly reminder to please send us your photo and a short text about you. Next thing, this is an internal thing, the email list implementation. So we have a communication channel that includes all contributors, so we can reach out to them when there's news and updates, send reminders, ask questions, and we thought that it's an easy accessible tick box. You can see the screenshot, just click on it and you're on the list. So nothing easier as that. Next thing is outreach social media. So we established a DH course registry profile on Instagram. You can see we have 240 abonnents, followers. You can find the course registry as well on Twitter and Facebook if you look for the hashtag DH course registry. And we produced some videos that are available on YouTube, a promo video and 2 screencasts on how to find a course and how to add a course. So how to find a course is basically for students. It shows how to browse the platform, and how to add a course is for lecturers, how to add their respective DH course. Then when it comes to events, we had in 2020 a virtual hackathon with the data of the DH course registry. So that is the API that we are providing. And the task was to develop a creative mode of visualizing data and metadata about the teaching activities. And 4 winners were chosen, and I will flip through this very briefly. The 3rd place was a project to investigate collaborations of institutions in regards to academic publications, to easily access the relations among researchers working in each institution. So you can see here a very nice neuronal network was produced and visualized. Then we have ex aequo, the 2nd place, a project called NotLef. The design of this web app was inspired by the Feltrin annual report. Feltrin is an artist who concentrates on translating quotidian data into meaningful objects and experiences, condensing the events of a year into a tapestry of maps, graphs, and statistics. And this application, NotLef, consists of 2 pages, courses, and places where a set of data is highlighted in color. The other ex aequo project 2nd place is the so-called DH Education Knowledge Map, creating knowledge maps via hypertext. It visualizes 4 panels that present the DH course registry courses as a table and a scatter plot, and the Wikipedia information in form of a graph and a paragraph from Wiki about the selected nodes. So the data was enriched with data from Wikipedia. And I want to stress now the winning project, which is Coriander, that is course registry statistics and additional material, adding further functionalities to the DH course registry by CLARIN and DARIAH, long title. It provides visual access on the topics listed in the DH course registry. And there are 2 access points, basically an interactive bar chart that displays keywords together with countries and data sets. And then we have a core chart that shows co-occurrence of keywords in the courses. And yeah, upcoming event, we did apply for a stall at the CLARIN Bazaar, which needs to be confirmed, but we think it will go well. So this will be the next thing where we can reach out to both scholars, lecturers, researchers, and maybe as well students. And I will hand over the floor to Leon.
Yeah, thank you. So first of all, I should say that I'm replacing Iulianna van der Lek, who is the actual one of the actual co-chairs of the DHR working group. As Anna already told you a while ago, we've already published 2 tutorial videos on how to use the DHR as a student and as a lecturer. And in addition, we have just uploaded a tutorial for national moderators on Google Drive. You should know that this is an internal video, so it's not really to be shared with people who are not a national moderator. This is not because we reveal any kind of secrets in this video, but it's because it's simply less professional than the other 2 tutorials that we prepared in the past that were meant for larger audiences. So as you can see, the video instructs you how to invite a lecturer or contributor, accept or reject an account request, validate a new course, edit or revalidate an existing course, and edit your profile. Now looking at national moderators of the DHR in particular, so we welcome you to have a look at the tutorial, and if you have any comments or questions, don't hesitate to contact us. If I can have the next slide. So I'd like to very briefly highlight 2 publications. The first title has been published in Library Tribune last year, both in English and in Chinese. And as you can see, this was a joint effort with many authors involved who are or have been involved in the development of the DHR. This article contains a detailed overview of the DHR, its organizational and technical setup, the history of its development, and integrates all of these things in the larger picture of the digital humanities and teaching. If you're interested in reading it, there's a link on the slide that will allow you to read the article, and national presentations have been published on Zenodo, so you can find the link there. And the second title is a book chapter that is being prepared for a publication that will be published next year to celebrate the 10-year anniversary of Claire and Eric, edited by Andreas Witt and Daria Fischer. And in this chapter, among others, Tanja Wissig, Frank Fischer, and I will present the results of the hackathon that Anna just told you about. Okay, over to Hendrik for the technical enhancements.
Okay, yeah, hello. Yeah, despite the fact I'm still on my way to the background of the team, I have the honor to speak again about what's going on behind the scenes. There's going on a lot. First thing is that I currently work on a complete refactoring and migration of the backend application of the login area to the most recent framework version, which is KPHP 4. Yeah, as a prior version of the framework, basically it stopped working. We're having a lot of problems, which maybe some of our users experienced in recent time. The parts that will be seen or are a bit more present to users are the introduction, which is work in progress, of a new hamburger menu. Basically, at the moment, we don't have the menu structure. So a lot of content that needs to be organized to be shown properly on the homepage, and which will also be harmonized on the backend login area, so that we basically get the same layout structure on both sides as well. Yeah, because of this, yeah, a lot of content reorganization takes place now to represent social media contents as well. And yeah, one of the nice things when you have a developer in your team that you can have a programmed vacation cover so that the social media posts appear automatically. So then on the next slide. Yeah, at the moment in progress is rebuilding of the login page, especially the single sign-on, which has a lot of issues at the moment. Yeah, I hope to improve the situation significantly, and also with a view on the registration process. Because as users come from trusted networks, we don't need the step in between to approve the new users or new contributors. Yeah, an outcome of our last internal meeting was the introduction of a new team mail inbox. So to move away from the individual mailings to the administrator team and to react in a bit more organized manner on incoming requests. And yeah, there is, besides that mentioned point of CC natural moderators, a lot of more minor bug fixes, also in this workload of refactoring, which I hope to have it released in the end of September or in October. So then I give the floor back to Anna.
Thank you, Hendrik. So here we have an overview of some useful links. Basically, you can find all dissemination material available on our project website, and then again, social media and the links to several tutorials and a very nice course registry promotion video. Yeah, and questions, feedback. Thank you for your attention.
Thanks a lot for this presentation. And there was still some discussion in the chat, but let's keep it for the end. And I'd like now to give the word to Georgios.
Thank you.
Georgios is chair of the working group Digital Practices for the Study of Urban Heritage. And he will present the results of the workshop that took place very recently in Palermo.
Thank you very much, Francesca. Yes, this is true. Finally, after having to postpone the face-to-face workshop 3 times during the pandemic, we finally managed to meet. There, of course, we had some hiccups and difficulties. I will tell you more about during my presentation, but we have managed to successfully complete and conclude the workshop. The overarching objective of the workshop was to develop an inclusive and open data-driven participatory methodology for the sustainable management, reactivation and reintegration of historic sites and open-air spaces of our cities into the contemporary lives of their inhabitants. And we used a couple of mobile apps that were developed with the support of the Cyprus Institute, the AVIA, the Advanced Visualization Lab at the National Center for Supercomputing Applications at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, and the Deustotech in Bilbao. And these 2 mobile devices that we used in practice during the workshop were designed and developed with specific functions and audiences in mind, and specifically were used for both discursive purposes, for example, to discuss for crowdsourcing and to discuss about the history of a site, a historical site, or a sociocultural value of the site, and could open the door to the collection of material, and also the creation of a discourse, a dialogue about immaterial and tangible cultural heritage. And the other one, the other application was about the documentation and visualization of 3D spatial data. And the context of them was, of their application was to create ephemeral installations and events on site, as well as to test the different design hypothesis scenarios and proposals in an informal way. The scales that these, the application of these mobile apps would enable and would allow for discussion were the scale of the whole site, of the whole campus, at the scale, the architectural scale, the scale of a building, as well as the scale of a body. And you will see later on what I mean by that. The whole concept behind the development of the whole co-creation methodology, of course, we didn't want to reinvent the wheel. We based and we extended our concept on the existing state of the art, and specifically on the UN Habitat's participatory incremental urban planning tool, and the contributions that specifically we tried to develop regard field research and on-site research, visioning workshops and strategic development of alternative scenarios for urban development and neighborhood planning workshops regarding the development and management of open air spaces, public space, cultural heritage, and local facilities. In this effort, we had, as I said, a specific historic site in an industrial heritage campus that has been reactivated and renovated and is reused now as it is called Cantieri Culturali, and it's a cultural neighborhood hosting filming school, photography school, co-working spaces, and various NGOs, local NGOs, as well as the Sicilian branches of the French Institute and Goethe Institute. And so in this context, we tried to analyze and raise specific questions regarding the reuse of this site, about future uses, possible gaps that the local stakeholders, the everyday users of this site would identify, and their understanding of how this space could be integrated and used in their everyday lives in a more successful way. So we did this through both practical terms, through the use of the mobile apps that I mentioned, as well as through questionnaires. So we got in contact with them, we interacted with them, and we started discussing about a new everyday for this site, asking them what are the places they like the most, or the places that they would never visit, or what they would like to see being used this site for, that we had identified, and etc. And we did this also. We captured feedback and collected feedback from the local stakeholders through an online form that was bilingual. And yes, we also, for those who would complete the form, we used the ELDAH tool to create a GDPR consent. And during the days of the workshop, we would meet on this a very nice community space that they have there. We would brainstorm. We had lectures by the local architect who was involved in this community organization that renovated one of the buildings there, and who is also who was representing Creative Europe funded project on the use of ICT for the co-creation of public spaces. We had theoretical introduction to theoretical concepts and discussions about reuse, lectures about the use of public spaces by different communities. And we had Carlos, who is also a member of our working group, representing the JPI Urban Europe funded project, C3 Places, as well as contributions by architects who are involved in creating the capacity for sharing architectural visions for reusing built heritage. Gerard Redeli, who was representing the PAX network, who are redeveloping the patio houses in Cordoba. We had stakeholder introduction sessions regarding the site, the whole campus. We would introduce the stakeholders, the local stakeholders, to the use of the apps, and we would demo them. And you can see here one of the features of the augmented reality app, which is for tabletop visualizations of the site. We held meetings with various stakeholders. This was one of the problems that we had, the challenge that we had, and that we couldn't bring together 30 or 40 people in the same room due to COVID, in the same space. So we had actually to break down all the meetings, and we ourselves would go and visit the stakeholders. And actually during the workshop, one of the major stakeholders in the campus, they had a COVID outbreak, and they had to contain themselves. We conducted interviews with some of them. We would present to them the augmented reality app as well as the crowdsourcing app. We would discuss about the neighboring very important examples of built heritage on site, and the future of the interfaces between the Cantieri Culturali and the Giza Palace, which is the building that you just saw before. We applied novel 3D documentation reality capture techniques, specifically using 360 cameras for photogrammetric documentation of the site. And you see here some of the results. Based on the feedback we got from the stakeholder meetings, we created a couple of design proposals for this site, which would then be available to them to interact and see through augmented reality in the physical space of the campus. And we would test this with passerbys, with people that we didn't interact before, as well as with the stakeholders that we had previously met, and we had collected their feedback. They would use these QR codes that we fixed on the floor to interact with the design proposals. There are 2 QR codes for the couple of proposals that I showed before, and they could interact with them both from the exterior space, from the outside of the site, as well as from the interior space. You can see here the screen grab, where the user would use the iPad to scan the QR code, and then they could see some of their proposals being visualized on site. An important thing was, a very good function was that the user could actually walk around by holding the iPad, and they could actually move in the virtual space as well. And after having successfully completed that, we thought that it was time. We had synchronized the closure of the workshop with the inauguration of an art exhibition that was using the same augmented reality app. And it was an art exhibition from Erwin Wurm, the famous Austrian artist. And we thought that this was a very good opportunity for us to attract some publicity and expand the list of people engaged in the workshop previously, including now artists, professionals, and representatives of the authorities. There was a lot of visibility on the site as well as on the news, and we had a great time. You see here the audience enjoying themselves in the site of our workshop. We even had fun. We would take pictures with the artist himself on site. And yes, I will conclude with a few updates and reporting. The local stakeholders were very interested in what we did in these few days, and they invited us to go back and on their expenses to conclude this process, so that they would have something concrete to negotiate with the municipality about the future reuse of this space. In parallel, we have plans to further develop the app and to give the opportunity to the user themselves to position in space 3D assets in order to communicate their ideas about future scenarios for the appropriation of the space of interest. And we are thinking that if we are lucky enough to attract the necessary resources and funds for next year, to actually do a back-to-back workshops in Lisbon and Cordoba to test and develop the final version of this platform. Yeah, and I should stop here.